Hello everybody, it is Rachel and I am here with another tutorial for the hide and seek block of the month from Pink Door Fabrics, and it is a pattern that was created by Willyne Hammerstein, and all of the fabrics are Tula Pink. So this is a block of the month that was created by Pink Door Fabrics. It's an 18-month block of the month. Unfortunately, if you haven't already purchased it, it is probably not for sale. We are in month 4 already, so usually they don't continue selling them once the block of the month starts. But this is a pattern that you can purchase and use your own fabrics to create as well, and it's a beautiful pattern. Lots of repeating patterns, lots of repeats and mirroring and all sorts of fun things for an EPP here. So I have started block 4. Unfortunately, I've been away from making videos for a little while, focusing on family. I had some travel trips and stuff like that, so I have not been recording everything that I've been doing. I am still working on sewing month 3. I did do a quick video that you'll see posted earlier about how I cut that out and everything, and I'm still stitching on that. But I wanted to get month 4 basted and cut out as well, because I will be going on a big trip in about a month. And so I want to have everything basted and ready to go, so all I have to do is stitch while I'm away, which will be nice. So as I will probably get the next month in before I leave, so I will also baste those even if I'm not finished sewing. But normally I like to try to stay as caught up as I can. This is a big undertaking, so please don't feel like you're behind if you're behind, because this is so much more work than Queen of Diamonds was, and that's okay. I love it. I love the challenge. It's more like a puzzle and it's been a lot of fun to do, but definitely don't feel bad if you're a little bit behind. So month 4 was an interesting month, to say the least. So the way that they did these, I guess Tula doesn't have a ton of fabrics that are in this green, kind of lime green, yellow colorway. And so the month ended up where you actually have the same blocks repeated a couple times. And I personally didn't really like that. So I can just show you real quick. I'm not going to show you any cutting things or whatever, but all 6 of those, 7 of those are pretty much the same. And then even the bigger blocks are almost exactly, all 3 of them use the same 3 fabrics in the same 3 ways. So I personally try not to make the same piece over and over. That's just my personal preference. But I didn't really know how to make them different. That was my big challenge. So it took me a little while to get my act together on these ones. But I did finally have an epiphany. So I used some fabrics. I think I only pulled 2 from Queen of Diamonds that had a nice colorway to them to use as a replacement in some of these, and then I just swapped up the way that the fabrics fell as well. So I already cut out 2 of the bigger blocks. I have not tackled the smaller blocks yet, so you'll see me do those in the video. So for this one, I did the centers pretty much the way that the pattern did, with the mouse, the cute little mouse in the middle. So he is repeating like this. So this is pretty much the same as the actual pattern. I'll just do 5 so that you can see how those come together. Then I use the hexagon. So again, fussy cut it just by using my light board, eyeballing the diamond shape in the middle there. And that's the same again as the pattern. Actually, I think I used the hexagons in the same spot on all 3, just swapped up some other stuff. So this went like this. And then the change that I made to this is the, let me see if I can slide. Of course it doesn't want to slide. That's fine, you'll see. So the change that I made here, so far this is exactly like the pattern. The change that I made here is I took this cloud fabric from Queen of Diamonds. This was in month 4/1 actually. If you happen to do Queen of Diamonds, you can check if you still have some of this available to use. So there was a piece of it that had this lighter green color, and so that's what I went with, and I cut them all from the same gradation line, so they're all exactly the same. and this is going to be my outer piece. And this was the stripes in the original pattern, was the outer piece, and so I changed it up by doing that. So that is one of my, and it doesn't matter which one it is, they're all the same shape. The only difference is one of the three of the big ones, so two of them have 9 outside pieces, so these are the outside pieces, so you only need 9, and one of them has 10. Other than that, they're pretty much exactly the same. So it doesn't really matter if this is four, I don't know, what is it? Must be 4-2, 4-3, and 4-4. So I didn't really label it with a number. I'm just going to play around with how I like it once I'm piecing it into the quilt, if that makes sense. So this is either 4-2, 4-3, or 4-4. Doesn't matter which one. So that was one of them. So let me pick that up and put it away. And what I've been doing, so normally I just put all of my pieces in one big bag because it's pretty easy to tell what the pieces go to. But for these, I'm storing each block in a smaller bag because the blocks are so similar. I don't want to get confused with the changes that I made. So I want to make sure that these stay together so that I don't accidentally mix it up with another one. All right, so for the second one of these 3 blocks, I, again, used my hexagons the same way that I did in the other one. So same thing, just fussy cut the diamonds using a light board. Then I made my center my stripes. So the stripes are the outside border on all 3. So instead, I made my center my stripes. So we'll show you what that looks like. We'll put 5 of them out so you can see. And what the way that I did them is I did the stripe right across the middle. And when I line these up, I'll get this cool hexagon pattern. Hopefully you can see that. I can zoom in a little. So I'll get this hexagon pattern out of them once they are all lined up. Oop. Okay, sorry about that. So that's how I decided to do those. Switch it up so the stripes are in the middle. Then again, my hexagons are going to be my second layer, just like it is in the original pattern. Like I said, I kept the hexagons as the second layer on all of them, just kept that consistent. I really couldn't think of something that was better than that, so we just kept it the same. So that's the second layer. Then for my third layer, so the centers were all that mouse fabric and the outsides were the stripes. So I swapped it. So I made my edge the mouse fabric, but it has no mouse on it. I just used a piece that had a good amount of green in it so that I could actually use up parts of the fabric that were in between the mice. So every single block in this quilt uses a mouse. So every time we use that fabric, you're using a mouse piece. And so there's a lot of in-between fabric that's not getting used. And so I decided to use this to use that up and make my fabric a little more efficient. So I just cut them all the same. So you have this little flourish in the same exact spot on every single one. Just used my method where I cut out one, use tape it to the front to line up again on that repeat exactly, flip the fabric over, put the cardboard where this was taped on the back side, untape this, cut it out, and baste it. So that's the easiest way of getting a matching pattern, I think. I like it better than my clear, but I do use my clear sometimes, but I like that method. I feel like it's a little more precise. So I decided to have these with the flourish facing down inside of each. So this is my second version of this block. And again, it's either 4-2, 4-3, or 4-4, doesn't matter. I think on this one I did cut out 10 of the edges, but I could just use 9 if I decide to put it where the one of the 9s are. So that's pretty straightforward. So then for my last one, which is I am still working on, I actually decided to make it pretty much exactly the same as the one in the pattern. So they're, like I said, the 3 that are in the pattern are all exactly the same. What shows it in the cutting assistant, if you have that, they are all exactly the same. I accidentally Took too many of these. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I grabbed some from the other block by accident. So again, going in the small packets so that I know exactly which ones are going to go together for these blocks. So for the next one, I pretty much did it exactly the same, or I'm going to. What I'm going to do is have the stripes on the outside, just like the pattern. I have my hexagons, which are going to be the second row, same as before. But what I changed a little bit is the center. So because one of my other quilts already had that mouse in the middle, which is the original pattern, I decided to use this little mouse because I don't think he's used at all on the quilt. He's kind of hiding under this leaf. And I like the idea of having a little bit more green showing because it's supposed to be a little bit more green forward block. So I decided to use him to make up this block. And I actually haven't decided if I'm going to have him pointing in or another possibility, which makes it seem a little bit more green because you'll see more of the green together, is to have him pointing out like he's running away from the block. So either way, I will decide that once I have all of them cut out and glue basted. So I can show you, since I'm still working on these, the method for how I get this repeating pattern, which is my tape method. And you can see this particular block has clear Scotch tape. I found this was easier. I was using washi tape, but the washi tape was so dark it was hard to see the edges of the design when I flip the fabric over. So now I use clear Scotch tape, which works perfect, and I will show you how we get that done. So I have my whiteboard here and I have my fabric. So this fabric is Swiss cheese fabric, and we're not even done using this fabric. I think it gets used later on in the quilt too, which is so funny to me that this gets used so much. So look at this. Swiss cheese. I have tried to use as much of this as I possibly can, which is nice that it's getting used up. So we are looking for one of those upward facing mice, and I'm trying to use it. So I haven't actually cut into the top half of this quilt yet. I've been able to use everything in the lower half, so I'm looking for as many of these that I can cut out in the lower half. I don't know if I'll get 10 because as you can see, some of these were cut really close for a different pattern, so I'm trying to find as many as I can. But there's 2 here, so we'll definitely use those 2. So this is my tape and flip method of lining up patterns, and this is when you want each diamond to be exactly the same as the next. Let me zoom in so you can hopefully see even a little better what we do here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. So again, this is the first one that I did, just basted it however I wanted, didn't really worry about how I did it. Basted it, and now we're going to line it up on the repeat of the next one so that all of it's like this piece just falls right into line of where it was cut out on the other pattern. So you want to line everything up so you can see like this little thing lines up, this lines up, this little swirl up here lines up, and so we then push down our tape so that it holds it in place, and we can turn on our light board, and I can turn off the light because that helps you see the light board a little better. Then what we do is just flip this over. It's a big piece of fabric, so it's not easy to flip off. So this is the back of the fabric. You can see where I placed that right through the fabric. And what we're going to do is put our piece of cardboard right over it. And so I always put glue right to all the corners because I don't want these corners to move a smidgen when I'm basting at all or cutting out or anything. So we line this up on top of this piece exactly. So you just line it up with the cardboard so the cardboard covers exactly where you tape that down. And I usually just hold it for a second so that glue really adheres. And then we can take the front piece off. I can turn off my light board. You don't really have to turn off your light board, but just so that you guys can see a little better. then we're gonna cut this out. And I just do a little snip. And I'll show this in regular motion and then we'll do the rest in fast motion for you, but just so you can see how this comes out. Okay, and then we will baste it. And I have found for when I'm doing these, sewing these centers together, it is so much easier if my fold goes the same way. So where my mouse is, I have the top fold, so that would be the bottom. So I've been spacing that at the bottom. So, because your first folds are your inner folds, if that makes sense. So if you have them all facing the same way, when you go to sew them to make those stars, if that fold is going the same way, it is going to make your life immensely easier lining everything up. And I'll show you that real quick once I have this one basted. So we do just a little baste on the fabric along the edges of the cardboard. You don't want to get all the way to the edge because you want your needle to be able to slide through. So I do, like you can see, I'm not touching the edge of the cardboard there. And even on this, I'm coming up the side. I'm not going straight across because that'll leave glue right on that edge where your needle's eventually going to go through. So the way that I baste is basically making sure no glue gets on the edge of the fabric. Or the cardboard, I mean. And then when you're doing these, just kind of loosen that fabric on that corner, and that'll prevent you from getting a little wing on that corner. It's pretty easy because it's kind of an unusual corner to do, so sometimes you might find you get a little wing. And so if you kind of smooth it, kind of finagle it, it'll be fine. And if you do get a little bit of a wing, like, I don't know if you can see, there's a teeny tiny bit, I usually use my nail bed to just soften it a little bit, and that'll be fine. So you can see, let's see if we did a good job. This lines up really good with the last one. So, you know, there's little differences. You can see some blue here and there isn't here. So I was very slightly off, but in the grand scheme of things, it's really not going to show much. This one has a big wing, so we'll just massage that a little. But so like I was saying, as far as lining up, so when we go to sew this eventually, it is so much easier to be able to see both of these folds and make sure they're both here, because if you are trying to line it up this way and the folds are going opposite directions, it's easy to not be quite right. You can kind of go one way or the other because it's hard to tell where exactly that corner is. But if you have them going the same way and the fold is going the same exact way, then you're going to be more precise when you're doing this. So that's why I always make sure that my folds are going the same direction as with each other. It doesn't matter if they go up or down, so whether they're on the top or the bottom, as long as they're all the same, if that makes sense. So that is how we're doing that pattern. So I have 4 cut out. I need to do 6 more. So I will do that in fast motion for you guys, and we'll see you on the flip side. So the last part of this block is going to be the stripe fabric. This is pretty straightforward on how to cut this, but I'll just show real quick what we do. So I just use my light board for this. I'll turn the overhand off so you can see the stripes right through the fabric. And we just take our piece, we'll start up here, and I like to put glue right on the corners just to make sure they stay exactly where I want them to once I cut and baste. And you can just see that light, that fabric right through, and just make sure the line goes from corner to corner here, and press it down, and then cut it out and baste it. So I'll just do the rest of these on fast motion and show you what they look like when they're done. Okay, so I just wanted to mention on this last one that I'm basting, I had mentioned in some other videos, but for this quilt, you want to make sure that you're basting your diamonds all the same throughout the entire quilt so that the ears go the same way the whole time. So what I'm doing is starting in the top right corner and going counterclockwise. If you want to go clockwise, that's fine. You would start in the top left corner and go clockwise, but you always want to start in one of the top corners so that your tails will go opposite directions. If you start at the bottom and go counterclockwise, then your tails would be going the same direction and you'll have an issue with your tails running into each other. So hopefully that makes sense. So just make sure your pattern is the same whether you go counterclockwise or clockwise. Just do it the same on every single piece that you do in this quilt. And when I'm putting my glue down, I try and make sure that I don't touch any of the edges. I think I had mentioned that before, so we'll just finish this last one up real quick. And if you accidentally, I think you may have seen it in the fast motion, if you accidentally start in the wrong spot, you can just lift up the corner and correct it before you finish everything. Okay, so that is the last one. So I will lay out this one real quick so you can see. So this is the last one of the 3. So they're all very slightly different because in the pattern, like I had mentioned, it had them pretty much all the same, and I don't really like to have them all the same, so I just switched it up a little for each one. I'll just put half of this together so you can see. Sometimes it's hard to put it all together. So we have that, then our hexagons going. So this one is the closest to the original, except I did change the center a little bit. But this one has the hexagons and the stripes. And so like I said, this is 4-2, 4-3, and 4-4. I'm not deciding which one's going to go where until I start sewing things together and just see what fits best with the different colorways that I did. But that's basically, so that's how the half of it looks. So hopefully all of this made sense for this quilt. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. Also let me know how far along you are in the process, or if you're working on a different quilt, how you're doing with that. And hopefully this tutorial was helpful to you. Thank you, everybody. Bye.